Phil, before you introduce our speaker today, we've got a little video that we want to show the club. And it might take us, there we go.
We are this close.
This close.
To direct modest.
We are this close.
This close to making history.
This close.
We're this close, this close. We are this close.
We are this close.
This close.
This close to changing the world.
We are this close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
We're this close to ending polio. We're this close.
This close. This close to ending polio.
This close.
We are this close to ending polio.
All we need is you.
All we need is you.
All we need is you. Is you.
All we need is you.
This close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history at endpolio.org.
All right. So Phil, before you introduce our speaker, we've got something here for you that I kind of forgot about. Go ahead, Brent. Eight bells. Thanks,
Okay.
Phil.
Our speaker today is Jim Lewis. Jim is the first of several featured Rotary speakers that we are planning to have during our centennial year. Jim's story starts in 1948 when he was infected by polio and completely paralyzed for 6 weeks. With lots of hard work and love, Jim regained most of his movement and became a champion swimmer and water polo player. He attended Cal State Northridge, Cal State Long Beach, and USC. He was a high school teacher, coach, and administrator for 40 years. In 2001, he joined Rotary. Since then, he has been incredibly active. He has taken 9 National Immunization Days trips to India and has served as a Rotary Rose Parade Committee float director since 2015. He has spoken throughout the world about Rotary, led and served on many district committees, and has received several Rotary awards, including the International Service Award for a Polio-Free World, given at the Rotary International Convention in Atlanta in 2017. Jim, thank you for joining us and telling us your story about the power of Rotary.
Thank you, Phil. Well, I can see that your club has more fun than most clubs do. It's so organized with all of your, the way you're running the meeting, Mark. I love it. It's great. We've trying to get used to doing this kind of thing. I told Phil I wanted to bring the iron lung I have up and do a program for you, for all of your clubs together, and maybe we can do that when time permits and we get rid of this COVID business. But it's really an honor and a privilege. 100 years of your club. I mean, I love those pictures. I've been in Chico a couple times in the past, and one of those times was when I was playing water polo at Cal State Northridge, which was then called San Fernando Valley State. We played water polo against Chico State, and I remember it. It was quite an experience to come up to your campus there and see Chico. It was really beautiful. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Jim, do you want to share your screen with us so we can see your slides?
Oh, yes. Let me do that and
Okay.
See if I can do this.
Well, don't ask me for help. That's why I just gave Jessica a microphone.
Oh, yes. There we go. Wait a minute. What happened? Okay. Share. There we go. I need to share. I need to move the screen. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can. I need to get to my desktop. So where am I? Hold on. I can move this around. I think I can move it. There it is. See if that'll work.
Looks perfect.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll make it bigger by play. How's that, folks?
Excellent.
Can you see it all?
We
Phil, you all right?
Good.
Okay, good. Well, let me say that times today with this virus that's all over the world and the scariness of it is no different really than it was for hundreds and hundreds of years for polio. I mean, today we turn on the television, we turn on our cell phones, you know, we're on our computers and we can find out what's going on all over the world almost instantaneously. So there's lots of information out there. When I was a kid and way before that, we knew, and our parents knew, that polio, the polio virus, was in someplace. It was probably in the water. So they didn't want us to go to any swimming pools. They didn't want us to go to any theaters. They didn't know if the polio virus was in the theaters. You couldn't go to a plunge. You couldn't even swim in lakes. People were scared to death. And they didn't really know much about it. That picture of me, that picture in the middle is me standing up where it says past. The little girl that's leaning against that bed already has braces on her legs and she's using crutches. I don't know about the little kid that's in the bed. You'll notice a jack-o'-lantern in there. It was October. I came down with polio in 1948, August 27th, about the same time that we're going through this right now. August 27th was my mother and father's wedding anniversary. They'd been married for 10 years. My father was an All-American football and baseball player. He too was a coach, a teacher, administrator for years. My mother was not an RN, but she was a medical secretary. And in those days, doctors made house calls, and my father and mother had the doctor that handled the football team come to the house, and he looked at my brother and he looked at me, and at the point I could not even move. I was so paralyzed I couldn't move. And the doctor told my mom and dad that he thinks we have polio, but we have to go down to the County General Hospital in Los Angeles and they'll find out. So my father carried me, my mother carried my brother, and took us to the County General. That was the last time I saw my parents for 6-7 weeks. We did have polio. They gave us spinal taps. I still remember my brother screaming. That needle seemed to be a foot long. But we did have polio, and it progressed to the point where, for me, I really couldn't move I couldn't move anything. They had to feed me and get me to try to move around. There was a nurse in Australia by the name of Kenny, Sister Kenny. They called her Sister Kenny. Nurses were referred to as sisters. And she developed this treatment of wrapping your body with scalding hot wool blankets, hot packs. And I remember today what those felt like. And if I smell wool that's wet, it brings back the memories. But after about 6 weeks, I got to the point where I could stand up. In those days, we couldn't have any visitors. If somebody sent us a little stuffed animal, the stuffed animal stayed in the hospital. They were so worried about the virus. They did get me up and help me walk to the window. And if you've ever seen the county hospital in Los Angeles, it's quite tall. And I could look out the window and wave to my parents. My brother was not paralyzed. Only 1 in 200 polio patients are paralyzed. So there's a little bit of a little history on just myself. I did get better when I was 10. I had a muscle transplant done by Dr. Leroy Lohman at the orthopedic hospital. And it helped me because my left quadriceps were totally and completely they were atrophied and didn't have any left. So anyway, let's take a look at the picture on the left with Dr. Albert Sabin and Dr. Jonas Salk. And I'm sure that if you've been in Rotary for a while, you've heard of these names. Both of those gentlemen were working on a vaccine, just like they're working on a vaccine today for COVID-19. Dr. Salk believed in injecting a killed virus into the bloodstream, and it would go directly to your brain, and it would inoculate the child. Dr. Albert Sabin believed in a very small amount of live virus that you gave in the form of drops. Well, both of these gentlemen are champions today because we're using both of the vaccines. And the Sabin vaccine doesn't cost as much. So the money that you give to polio, a lot of that money goes to the vaccines that are made all over. But it has worked. But it is a live vaccine. It is a live virus. Let's move down and then I'll just briefly on the future there. The future, that's a picture of me. I'm sitting in a lab really in Calcutta, India. And this lab make wheelchairs and braces and crutches and tricycles for polio survivors. They also make them for children and adults that are suffering from cerebral palsy. Let's take a look at what the definition really is for those. And I notice you have quite a few young people in your Rotary Club, which is really terrific. Great to see. You can read what I have there on the slide if you will, please. Muscle weakness resulting in the inability to be able to move. If you don't have muscles, you're not going to move your bones in your body. You see the picture of the kids on the left. That's unacceptable. That's what polio does. That kid on the right in that picture is on all fours because his legs are atrophied. Look at his right calf. Look at his left calf. There's no muscle. And without the muscle, you can't move bones. You can't move your body. The picture on the right shows a group, iron lung. And in that case, the virus has affected the muscles that we use for breathing. And that iron lung would be helping the child or the adult to breathe both negative and positive. That machine does the work of what our lungs are doing. They didn't have this iron lung all over the world, like ventilators today. Ventilators are doing, in many regards, what that iron lung was doing. But they had to live in that. In many cases, they had to live in that iron lung all the time. And they needed help all the time. But they were alive. In other countries where they didn't have it, they most likely just die. As I've said before, 1 in 200 are paralyzed. And in most cases, polio survivors have some type of weakness. We'll talk about what post-polio syndrome is in a few minutes. but most of us that have lived long enough, that have lived with polio, are suffering from some form, many forms maybe, of muscle weakness that is what we call post-polio. Let's take a look at what Rotary and your club's been around 100 years. That's amazing, fantastic. And I don't know how many of you have been back to the Rotary Foundation and Rotary International headquarters in Evanston, but I'd highly recommend it to everybody. Terrific, and they've got a terrific display about polio in their lobby. So poliomyelitis has been around for thousands of years. 3 types of polio. We've eradicated type 2. Type 3 was declared also eradicated in 2012. We have 1 kind of polio left, wild poliovirus type 1. Rotary became involved, and most of you might know this if you've been around for Rotary for a while. In the Philippines in 1979, they did a test case with about 7 million children. It was so successful that the ball started rolling, and at the Council of Legislation, they launched what we refer to as Polio Plus in 1985. And of course, being as positive as we are in Rotary, the plus is when we finally eradicate the disease. And most businesses and most clubs like yours, obviously, is very, very successful, but it takes a team. So they formed what we refer to as, and what is, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. It was established in 1989. At that time, there were 350,000 cases of paralytic polio worldwide. And remember, 1 in 200 are paralyzed. That's a lot of polio, folks. The members, of course, are Rotary. We are the cheerleaders. We are those that are helping to cheerlead and to help on NIDs all over the world, and have. We are the ones that help raise the money. World Health are the administrators. CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, are the ones that are the experts. They're the ones sending doctors and nurses to check the sewers, check the water, check for where the virus is. Where is the virus? UNICEF are the thousands of workers and vaccinators. They're the ones that you see on little motor scooters, walking on foot, elephants, you name it, motorcycles. They are getting to the areas in these countries so they can vaccinate every man, woman, and child. Then, of course, in 2007, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation jumped in, and it was like a shot in the arm for us to help with this eradication. Bill's father is, I have to say was and is, a Rotarian. And they contributed $100,000. That can go quite a ways. Most oral polio vaccine costs about 60 cents or less. The injectable vaccine, the Salk vaccine, can run anywhere from $1.50 to $3 a shot. That money is being well used. They said, Bill says, I'm going to challenge you. If I'll give you $100,000, but I want you to match it. Well, like your club, and doing all the great things that you do, Rotary raised $200,000. Here's some good news that you can read. Started in 1995. When Rotary started with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, when we started, there were 126 countries that were endemic. They had never eradicated polio. And today we're down to 2 countries. I know that you know a lot about this because you read your Rotarian magazine, or you look up the website and you keep in touch with what's happening at Rotary. Since COVID-19, we've had to pause in giving some of our vaccines for polio. It's been very difficult to get to some of these areas. Very tough. I mean, you know how tough it is in America. Wearing masks, hand sanitizer, keeping our distance, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's not as easy in some of these countries. Last year, there were 179 cases of polio, paralytic polio, type 1. This year, as of last Thursday, we've had 97 cases. Now, I put a little star down there, excludes vaccine-derived cases. There are some cases of polio from the oral vaccine, because remember, that vaccine is live virus. And in many cases, the child cannot keep the vaccine. It goes into your stomach and it's supposed to manifest itself and build up an inoculation. Sometimes it doesn't happen. They have diarrhea or it just doesn't take. So in many cases, you have to vaccinate more than once with the oral vaccine. Let me move on. India's a little concern for us, and it's a little concern for Deepak Kapoor, who's the head of Polio Plus in India. Tremendous man. I first got to meet him in 2004 on my first NID. They were having an NID and a sub-NID every month. They have decreased it down to about one every year. And sub-NIDs periodically. Now, India and many countries are in total lockdown. So people aren't really moving around. The trains, the buses are all stopped. And we're talking about a country of 2.5 billion people. And like Phil has said, I've been there 9 times. And it's, there's a lot of people running around. It's not easy. Anyway, 155 countries have switched out of the trivalent to the bivalent. And now they're also using the inactivated in 126 countries. Let's take a look at our game plan. We call it the end game. We've had to adjust it. If you can see, I can't see it with my picture there, but I hope everybody else can see that. It's been extended to 2023. Now, whether they're going to adjust that or not, I'm not sure. Here's our 4 objectives. And the timeline is pretty good, really. First, poliovirus detection and interruption by vaccinating. 2, strengthening immunization, symptoms, and OPV withdrawal. Slowly but surely getting rid of the oral polio vaccine and going to injectable. Objective 3 is containment and certification. Takes 3 years to certify. And then, of course, our legacy is that we've done it. Our game plan, our structure that we're using for polio is being used for COVID all over the world right now. Risks and concerns, let's take a look at those. The oral vaccine, like I've said before, in some cases, the lack of clean water, proper food, nutrition, and sanitation. Administration of the inactivated vaccine is more difficult. It takes trained medical healthcare workers. It's much easier to give the oral vaccine. And I personally have only given oral polio vaccine. So the plan is to be without a polio case for 3 years before we can say it. Now, many of you know or have heard or read of Mike McGovern. Mike is a terrific guy. I got a chance to meet him in 2017 in Calcutta. I'd asked him to come for a polio summit, and he lives in Maine. He's a past school administrator and a past college administrator. And he simply asked me, Jim, when is it? I said, it's going to be in March. He said, I'll be there. But there were some questions in April of 2019, about a year ago, there were some questions there. And you can take a look at them that people had. And these were the answers. You can look it up and find out what really he was talking about. One of the problems we had in Pakistan was a past president, immediate past president, who was really not an advocate for polio eradication. And the person he had in charge of Polio Plus in Pakistan really didn't do the job. In fact, well, the job was not done. And so the cases skyrocketed. Today, the new president has guaranteed our new RI president and others in Rotary that they are dedicated, that they are going to eradicate polio. And so the cases have come down. They're a little bit high because of COVID, and not being able to get to the places where they need to do. But if you get a chance, take a look at Mike McGovern and see what he had to say. Let's take a look at what our future is when we eradicate it. Polio survivors, in many cases, we're a bunch of overachievers. We've done all these things in our life that we probably shouldn't have done, like going backpacking with my legs, going skiing with my legs, walking and using weight machines to build up the muscles, when what we've found is it kind of tore them down. So surgeries and calipers and braces are going to really help, and going to help those that just have lost their muscles when they're young. They may need wheelchairs. They may need hand-operated tricycles. And as we look at the plus, I don't care where you are as a polio survivor, especially in the countries, not America, but in those countries where you find a lot of polio survivors, many of them need vocational training. They need job placement. We are Rotarians. We can find jobs. We can train them. We have global grants for vocational training. And of course, literacy education. We need to have those children in school, and we need to be able to develop handicap ramps if they're on a wheelchair so that they can get around. So my goal is to not only work, and I've done one large global grant for surgeries, calipers, braces, wheelchairs, hand-operated tricycles, but is to put together our project now for vocational training and job placement And if the kids aren't in school, get them in school. And I have to say this too about girls. Girls in some of these countries are not treated with the same respect that boys are. It is thought that the girls can't do the jobs that the boys can do. Well, so they don't get a chance. We're going to change that. Any of you, I know you're in Northern California, but if you need help, you can go to Rancho Los Amigos Rehabilitation Hospital in Downey, California, and you can get all the help you need. And if you don't have insurance, if the kid doesn't have insurance, the adult does not have insurance, and that adult is suffering from post-polio syndrome, they can help them. Now, I know that at UC Davis, they also can help you there too. I put together some pictures so that you can visualize this. Corrective surgeries. I watched this corrective surgery on that bottom left when I was in Moradabad in 2004, and I've seen a number of them since then. The children were screened to see if a corrective surgery will help. They put a number on their forehead, line them up. They do the surgeries. They put them on a gurney. They take them to like a bunkhouse. They're on a cot. Usually the mother or father are sitting with them. There's no morphine drips. There's no medication to help with pain. And believe me, it's very painful. Wheelchairs, we gave that wheelchair away on the right down to bottom, that young man, so that he could be a courier in the city of Calcutta. He was so thrilled. The little girl was waiting to get braces on the right, and the one up on the left, we gave a wheelchair to. I did hold as Phil said, I did hold a summit in 2017. It's the first one we've had. My district, which is 5240, and District 3291 were the co-sponsors. And I had Michael McGovern, Deepak Kapoor. I had a member from UNICEF and a head of UNICEF and a member of World Health from India that were there. As a result of that summit, we moved on to do more corrective surgeries with this global grant. And from April 6th to the 10th, we did over 300 surgeries. Those pictures of the little children, you can see how they're right next to each other in that room. Pretty tough. Let's talk briefly about what post-polio syndrome is, because I got to move. I think I've talked about it, but most polio survivors will suffer from it. I am. I have to use braces. This is my latest brace. I'll hold it up. This is the latest brace that I'm using now. It's made out of hard plastic. It molds to your leg, in this case, my legs. And it's taken from a plaster Paris wrap, and they wrap your leg, then they take the mold and they build the braces. These braces help me walk, but it's pretty tough. A lot of people have problems with sleep. They have problems with swallowing and so forth. But we can't give up. We can't quit. And we have to continue until the end. Rotary will never give up on Polio Plus. We will never give up. We can't leave them behind, and we have to be able to raise awareness to our family and friends of what Rotary is doing. I would like to see you on all your projects. If you have a Rotary table, put some stuff out about polio and let everybody know what our #1 objective is. So we never give up, we never quit. Do we have any questions, Phil, do you think? Let me get out of this. Whoop, stop sharing. There we go.
Take a look in the chat box. I see there's one. I believe that's a thank you to you, James. Well, if you have any questions of James, you can forward them to either myself or Phil, and we'll get them to Jim, and he can get them answered for you. But Jim, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. It was great. You know, it's it's amazing to think that Rotarians have been the driving force behind eradicating polio on the face of the earth. It's just an amazing thing. You go to an international conference and you hear a lot about it, and it really, really sends the right message. So thank you very much again. We are going to make a financial contribution in your name to Rotary Centennial Park, a 5-acre park that we're assisting with the construction here in Chico as part of our centennial celebration. So thank you again, Jim.
Thank you,
best
Mark.
wishes to you.
I promise I'll bring that iron lung up when I get it, when this COVID thing stops. I'll bring it up. Hopefully
Okay,
it's not 110 degrees.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. Thank you.